Hello, Seaholm Maples, and welcome to the grade level assembly we have planned for you today. But first, I want to welcome you back to the school year. It's not and plan, but I think nevertheless it's a good one. Your teachers have been telling me that the Zoom classes have been going well. Your parents have responded that they think that you're engaged, and you have told us as well. So welcome, and we're looking forward to a great school year despite starting here online in a virtual setting. The first slide today tells you really the what and the why of today's assembly. First, we want to review and reinforce important school policies. Just because you're online doesn't mean they don't matter. And the why. We need to support a safe and dynamic learning environment, and we're going to uphold the values and hold the high standards for all Seaholm Maples. What you see here on this slide is the touchstone. We call it the character touchstone that we had students create a couple years ago. So you'll see there the attributes that we value here at Seaholm, like kindness and honesty, integrity, acceptance, unity, and courage. And we say, be brave, be humble, and be the forest. I'm Mrs. Hall, and for those of you who are new students, we have 60 new students in our building this year, and we and extend a really warm maple welcome to all of you. We also have our freshman class who may not have had a chance to meet us, and so again, I'm sorry it's in this virtual setting, but I really know that you're going to come to value and to care about Seaholm the way all of the other classes. I'm the building principal, and I'm going to introduce you eventually. You'll see Mrs. Spryzak, and she's the assistant principal for grades 11 and 12. She's new here this year as well, and so I'm sure she's going to find her place, and you're going to make her feel a welcomed part of Seaholm High School. We also have Mr. Wicker. As you know, he was a teacher here. He was a student here at Seaholm, a teacher here, social studies department chair, and now he's the assistant principal for grades 9 and 10. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Seaholm House rules. The next slide. The house rules at Seaholm are pretty simple, but they're very, very important. You'll hear me talk about them. I know it's almost a joke that I talk about every meeting that I have, whether I'm hosting you students or I'm hosting your parents. We have 3 house rules, or 3 pillars that hold up our foundation, and that is to think with reflection, act with compassion, and perform with honor. These 3 crucial goals, these 3 crucial house rules will really guide you in your behavior and in your success here at Seaholm. And so you'll hear about them often, and I know that you will learn to also embrace them as well. I'd like to remind you, too, that last year and the year before we have done some work with student voice. We want to make sure that we lift your voice into the room, that we hear what you want in terms of your relevant and rigorous coursework, in terms of the goals and the mission at Seaholm High School. And so you'll hear us, and you'll have opportunities moving forward to participate in ways that will make you feel a part of the true foundation of Seaholm High School in all ways, with the curriculum, with your behavior, with our character initiatives, with our socio-emotional health initiatives. We want you to be a part of Seaholm High School in a very visible and a very strong way. So your voice matters, and you'll be hearing that again frequently. Also, we have school goals in the next slide, and these 3 goals are important. We've had these same goals that we've been working on as a staff to promote, and we've realized that maybe you need to understand these goals as well. So our first goal is that students will be college ready in reading by the time they graduate from Seaholm. Our second goal is that students will indicate they feel valued by the adults in the building, both as learners and as individuals. And finally, students will demonstrate proficiency and growth in their ability to speak and listen about class-related topics with engagement, knowledge, and civility and open-mindedness. And I want to just say a few things about that right now. With the election coming soon, And with all of the rhetoric that is flying around the news media regarding that election, I think it's really important that we look at that last goal very carefully. What are you doing as an individual to promote civil discourse engagement? You know, it's easy enough to see as we look around at adults and that they're not always behaving in this way. But I think that maybe we need to talk about it as high school students and what we're seeing in our own classrooms and what we're seeing on our own social media and how we comport ourselves as individuals. You take care of yourself. You do these things, and then we will have a lot more civility in our world. Right now, I would like to introduce Mrs. Spryzak to you as the 11th and 12th grade assistant principal. And again, warm welcome to her and warm welcome to all of you.
Thanks, Mrs. Hall. Hi, again, my name is Mrs. Spryzak, and I am the 11th and 12th grade assistant principal, and I'm happy to be here at Seaholm High School. I'm coming off 2 years at Groves High School, and I'm happy to see how things work on the inside of Seaholm. I'm going to talk to you first about attendance. I know it's a little weird to talk about attendance because everyone's at home or, in a comfortable place, probably doing their lessons, but I just wanted to go over some of the do's and don'ts as it relates to attendance. So if you take a look at the slide, students are expected to be in class every day. So whatever device you're using to log on to your different teachers' classrooms, please be sure that you are being responsible and you are showing up. There may be times where you're not able to show up. You may be ill. You may have a doctor's appointment. There may be some kind of a religious holiday that you're observing. If that is the case, just as if you were in person, you are expected to report your absence to the attendance office. And that number is 248-203-3730. Again, that's 248-203-3730. Also, please be sure to call if you have technical issues. If you are in a class and your Wi-Fi goes down and you can't reach your class any longer, please make sure to call that number and email your teacher. Tardies should be very infrequent as you are navigating your online courses. So please be sure that you log on to your classes in a timely manner, and that once you are logged into your classes, you remain there for the duration of the class time. And once again, just as we were in person, your absences will make a difference. So if you receive 8 absences in any class, it may adversely affect your final grade, which would in turn negatively affect your GPA. So please be sure that you are monitoring, that you are following the attendance guidelines and making the necessary notifications as it relates to your attendance. On the next slide, we have some expectations of student behavior. First and foremost, I want to reiterate that students are expected to behave in a manner that is consistent with the Seaholm Student Handbook. When you are in your online classes in those settings, you're expected to behave in a way that's not distracting to the teacher or to your classmates. Interruptions should be infrequent, and you should try to make every effort to minimize your distractions. I know sometimes it's unavoidable, like you may have a cat that will walk across your screen, but you just want to make sure that you aren't standing on your chair and jumping off while your teacher is trying to instruct. If your teacher notices that there's some very egregious behavior and there's been no change in that behavior from the teacher having conversations with you and or your parent, you may be referred to speak to either myself or Mr. Wicker, depending on your grade level. On the next slide, Birmingham Public Schools published some online student behavior guidelines that I just want to briefly go over. First of all, please make sure that you are able to access your online classes, that you've read how to get there every day, and that you are responsible in showing up to those classes. Make sure you have a Wi-Fi connection. I know that Sometimes that can be iffy because we've got weather situations. Sometimes there are situations where a tree falls and it interrupts your connection, but just check your Wi-Fi before it's time to log on to make sure you have access for the day. Try to find a quiet location where you are away from other family members or from anything else in the house that may cause a distraction. It's best to sit with your back to a wall so that you don't have anyone or anything walking behind you or doing any kind of motions that can be distracting. Definitely avoid sitting in front of a window because the light can be blinding and you cannot be seen on the camera. And make sure that your surroundings are school appropriate. We do know that we are zooming in your bedroom. However, if you have some questionable material hanging on your wall, please be sure to sit away from that. And on the next slide, continuing on those same online behaviors, try to join your online classes a few minutes early to make sure that your presence can be made. Mute your audio unless your instructor is asking you to make a comment. If you are on camera, make sure you speak directly into the camera and you're not looking down at the screen. One other thing, we do know, again, this is your bedroom or your living room or your family room, but make sure that your clothing is school appropriate. Pajama bottoms are okay, but however, make sure you have on an appropriate top. And anything that's not covered in these basic guidelines are definitely covered by the school handbook. All of the rules and regulations that are covered Home Student Handbook definitely apply in your online class scenarios. So please be mindful of your behavior. Please be mindful of your comments. Please be mindful of your actions so that they are seen as being aggressive or they are not seeing that you are putting someone down or doing someone that is just really not showing the best of who you are as a Seaholm Maple. I will turn it over to Mr. Wicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spryzak. So we call this our cell phone policy, but truly it belongs to a policy for all personal electronics. So it doesn't matter if it's your cell phone, if it is your Nintendo DS, your tablet, anything like that. If you have some sort of electronic device and it's not being used as your way of doing school, so your laptop or things like that, it needs to either be powered down, on silent, or off camera. We don't want anything to distract from the learning environment of your colleagues. We don't need your phone to be making noise. We don't need you to have your video game systems out. So please make sure that cell phones and other electronic devices are not audible or visible during class unless you have explicit permission from your teacher. So again, I know this is even easier to be distracted by when you're at home, but make sure that you have all your personal electronic devices or other people in your class, and make sure they're on silent, off, and really I think the best case would be to possibly have them out of your reach and out of the area that you're studying. But one of the things about personal electronic devices and being online a lot for classes is the easy access to things such as social media. So when you're using social media, we have this great next slide that talks about what you think. So your first question is this true? So there are a lot of things that happen that you might have heard about or heard second or third hand. And you ask yourself, is this really worth sharing? Is this true? Do I know that this happened? Do I know that's the case? So sharing, as you might have heard that joke about, quote, fake news, we don't want to be sharing things that aren't true online because they can be disruptive and hurtful to lots of people. Second, is it hurtful? So there are many things that we see and interact with our friends and family that's not on their best day. Do we want to share with the whole world about something that someone did maybe in one of their worst periods? Would you want someone to share that about you? So again, if it's hurtful, or it might even be perceived as hurtful, if you're wondering, well, will someone take this the wrong way? You should err on the side of not sharing it on social media. Third, is it illegal? So we want you to make sure that you are not setting yourself up for future legal issues. So again, if you want to think about, if I'm sharing, is this going to not only get me in trouble with Mr. Wicker or Mrs. Spryzak, but is this going to get me in trouble with the Birmingham Police or other bodies of law enforcement? Is this necessary? So for the answer to most part, a lot of things that we do online are not necessary because they're fun, but the big thing here is this necessary for me to do? Is this necessary for me to talk about somebody else or something that happened in class or one of my teachers? So if it's not necessary and it might be hurtful or illegal, again, we very much want to avoid sharing these on social media. And then finally, is it kind? So one of those three things that Mrs. Hall talked about is act with compassion. And social media is a very easy place to be unkind to people. So if this is not something that's kind, is it something that we really need to share? Is just know that the internet is written in pen, and even if you delete something, it's still very hard to get rid of. So we want to make sure that we are being true, not being hurtful, not sharing things that are illegal, not sharing things that are unnecessary, and finally, always making sure we're trying to be kind. And you might wonder, and our next slide will tell you why we care so much about social media. And while I am a big proponent of having your own personal expression, just know that unfortunately the government, through both the federal and state government, requires us to follow up on any situation that inhibits the ability of students to come to school and get an education. So if a social media post or a third-party action outside of school, even if it didn't happen at school, it didn't happen during school hours, but it affects our ability for our students to learn, we, Mrs. Spryzak, Ms. Hall, and I must follow up due to that what we call Title IX. So Title IX tells us that any implications that account for the endorsement of Seaholm School or Club, so if you are running a Seaholm Twitter or you're running a Twitter that has the word Seaholm in it, that becomes the purview of the school. And then finally, any account that impacts the teaching and learning becomes an issue with us as well. So again, I understand that you guys have your personal freedoms and we want to encourage you to express yourselves during your own time, but just know that if anything that happens online that inhibits the ability of someone at Seaholm to learn, we're going to have a follow-up with that just as though it happened in school. So again, please be mindful of your use of social media and just know that even though you believe, hey, this didn't happen during school hours, if it inhibits the ability of someone to learn at school, it becomes a problem of the school. And if you are having problems, I encourage you to reach out to your counselors. Our final slide lists your counselors. For most of our returning students, you very well may know your counselor already. But even if you haven't talked to them yet, I really would encourage you to reach out to them. So if your last name starts with A through D, you can reach out to Mr. Flatter. If your last name is E through K, you can reach out to Ms. Festian. If it's last name L through P, you can reach out to Mrs. Vanderveen, Q through V to Mr. Romano, and then W through Z to Mrs. Ficaris. And your counselors definitely are more than just your scheduling go-tos. Your counselors are there to talk about if you're having a problem with your friends, with your family, with a teacher, something going on in class. They are all there to make sure that you are having the best experience at school, both in and outside of the classroom. So on that note, again, I want to thank you all for your time. Welcome my freshmen back to here to Seaholm and all our other students back, and we look forward to a very exciting year. Thank you.
Hello, I'm one of the counselors on staff and the counseling department chair. I want to welcome you back to school, and I want to shout out to the class of 2024, welcome to Seaholm High School. The counselors have information to share with you today, and we want you to know that we miss you and we look forward to having everyone back in school in person in the very near future. Until then, I would like to turn this over to Ms. Festian, and she's going to share a little bit of information with you. Thank you.
Hi, Ms. Festian. I'm one of the counselors here. Welcome back, Mapes, and hello to the freshman class. Can't wait to see all of you in person soon. I wanted to talk about the three key areas that the Counseling Center concentrates on, which are social emotional learning, academic counseling, and college and career planning. So if you need assistance with any of those three areas, please reach out to us. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Flatter so he can let you know how to reach out to us.
Hey Maples, it's Mr. Flatter, and I'm the counselor for students with the last names A through D. If you have Miss Festian and your last name is E through K, you will have her. For students that have the last names L through P, you'll have Miss Vanderveen. And for students with the last names Q through V, you'll have Mr. Romano. And lastly, with students with the last names W through Z, you will have Ms. Ficaris as a counselor. And of course, we are all available for all of your needs, whether it's personal or academic. If you are more comfortable with one of the other counselors for a specific issue, you can certainly see one of them. And of course, we also have our wellness and crisis counselor, Ms. Wilson, who is also available for all of those personal issues that you may have going on with yourself or concerns you may have for other students. So please be sure to reach out to all of us should you need our assistance. And know that with your caseload counselor for your last name, you'll have that counselor for 4 years. So we hope to get to know you really well and be there for you in all of those different areas. And now over to Mr. Romano.
Hey everybody, I'm Mr. Romano, and as you can see, we're working. Counselors are here. We're working either remote or a combination of both. And you're going to want to contact us. So how do you do that? So look up our contact information on the school website, either by phone or email. It's really the best way. And so when you do contact us, we'll get back with you, either by phone or email, or maybe even set up a Zoom call. But let me give you a tip about that. So always give more detail when you make that phone call or you write that email. I've had a lot of phone calls this week. It says, hey, can I talk to you about my schedule change? And then they hang up. Okay, who are you? What's your name? And what's your phone number? That would help. So give as much detail to your counselor when you contact by phone or email even, so that we know how to get back with you and some of the detail of what you want to talk about, so we're prepared when we call you back. Okay? This will help get your questions answered sooner. And now to Ms. Wilson.
Hello, I'm Mrs. Wilson, and I am the Wellness and Crisis Counselor here at Seaholm. I hope you're surviving our virtual world. I really hope you have a routine in place and that you found a way to stay connected to friends as well. So I generally work with students on personal issues. It could be something big, could be something small. I've had groups, anything from like friend issues, grief and loss, anxiety, and I even did some time management stuff back in the spring. Speaking of which, I was able to continue to talk with students in the spring, even though we were not in the building. And I do that now. I'm pretty open. I can talk to students by phone or Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. And together with Ms. Festian, we're going to be starting a group for students who have some issues dealing with anxiety, and you should see a remind about that group if you're interested. In the meantime, if there's ever anything you want to talk about, feel free to reach out to your counselor, but I'm also here for another support. And here's Mrs. Balo.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Balo. I'm the secretary in the counseling office. I miss seeing your faces. Fingers crossed that you'll be back soon. Please feel free to reach out to me through email or a phone call if you have any questions regarding the counseling office. One very common reason you might need to reach out to me is for Power School. If you or your parents are having any trouble getting in, just give me a call and we'll troubleshoot it together. Another account that you may need help with is parchment.com. This is how we send our transcripts electronically. Starting January of freshman year, you'll get an invitation to create an account, and then you can order a transcript for yourself, send one to your mom, or even to your insurance company for a good student discount. Anyway, reach out to me about your Parchment account or your Power School account or anything else that you might need help with from the counseling office. Have a great day and go Mapes. All of a sudden I'm like, how do I end this? Because